Welcome to Poker Vlog number 16. It's Friday, so it's gonna be a 2-5, same place as always. And I wanted to say something I just realized. Last week I posted a hand that it was a $3,000 pot. That's definitely the biggest pot I've played so far. But the realization I had was that at the beginning of this year, like in March, that was basically my bankroll. So the fact that I had a pot the other week that is the size of my whole bankroll just in March, just definitely makes me feel pretty amazing for how far it came in this 1 year. And it could have gone very differently because basically the situation that happened was we just moved to San Diego and that was my bankroll. I was with my wife. Before that, I was mostly bartending and playing poker on the side, and we just decided, all right, let's use these $3,000, and go play. And if I run it up, I'll stick with poker, and if I lose, I'll just have to get a bartending job. I was still going to pursue poker, but I'd have to do it on the side thing while playing poker. And I just ran good. I got really lucky that I ran really good at the beginning, and I never had to get a job. And I've been playing since. But yeah, it's pretty crazy thinking how things could have gone different if I had a bad run to start with, like I had a couple months ago. Like I probably would have had to get a bartending job, and who knows how much longer it would have took me to get where I'm now. Because if I would be working with the kids, I don't know. I don't think I'd be able to play much. So definitely would have been a lot longer to get where I am now. So yeah, just wanted to say that since I just felt like so lucky, just appreciated where I'm at now. Because sometimes I think I have my vision. There's so many things I want to do. So now I'm here, but it feels like it's just the starting of my journey. There's so much more to go through. But yeah, just realizing how like way behind I was just 5-6 months ago. So anyway, just want to say that, and let's get right into it. Let's play some 2-5, and hopefully we could get some action and get a good vlog. So let's get right to it. Feels like Christmas when we walk into the poker room and we get the good news that there's an open seat in the 2-5, so we don't have to wait. We buy in for $1,000, head onto the table, and let's jump right into the first hand. First hand, we got pocket sixes in the button. Under than one limp, so I make it $20 and get the big blind and limper to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is Jack, Jack, 10, so not the best, but against the big blind and a limper, I think their ranges are very wide. So when it checks to me, to protect my hand and to get some value from draws that there's plenty, I make it $20. Big blind folds. Now under the gun one, check raises us, and just the 45. And yeah, especially with sets of small size, I'm good. I fold. Let's move on to the next hand. Now we're in a big blind with ace 10 off. Low jack makes it 15. Big blind calls, and I'm happy calling here, so that's what I do. So we go 3 ways to a flop. Flop is beautiful. Ace 4 10. So flop top 2. It checks to low jack. He bets $25. Button calls, and with 2 players and a good amount of draws, it's a pretty wet board. I'm not slow playing this. I check raise to 100, and sadly they both pretty quickly fold, so we can't get more value out of it, and we take it down. Now we look down at a premium. Pocket kings in the cutoff and make it $15 and get the small blind and big blind to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen 9-7, so pretty good having an overpair to the board. Sure, big blind could have all the combos of 2 pairs and sets apart from queens, and the small blind as well. I don't know how wide he is, but definitely pocket 9s and pocket 7s. I don't have to think too much about betting because the big blind leads out for $20, and this is mostly felt like a top pair type of hand, so I want to fast play, try to build a pot against that hand before maybe a turn comes a scare card like an ace, or it's not too many kings, but it could happen. So I raise at 60, small blind folds, and the big blind does call, so heads up to a turn. Turn is one of those scare cards. It's a king, so we turn top set. Jack 10 is a straight, but I don't think he'd be leading too often with that. I felt like most likely he's had a top pair type of hand. So that's why I'm not a big fan that the turn came a king. I felt like if he had 2 pairs or sets, he would have 3-bet me on the flop. So I just felt like this was an overkill that's going to kill a lot of action, and I'm not going to be able to get too much value from queens now that are going to be scared. So I wouldn't hate making a pretty small bet, but in the moment I made it $100, and sadly he does fold, so we take it down. So yeah, we flop top 2 and then we turn a set. Let's see if we could get something good with ace 4 off in a big blind. Under the gun 1 limp, so does the low jack cutoff and button. And yeah, with the offsuit version, I'm just happy checking. So that's what I do. Let's see a flop. Flop is interesting. Jack, Jack 4. So we have 2 pair with the best kicker. I don't think betting here would make too much sense since yes, right, you need protection, but so multi-way, someone is very likely to have a jack. So I do check, it checks to the button and he bets, he makes it $15 and says that he's bluffing with the best hand. I felt like I had the button beat for what he said since I think he's being truthful. I don't think he has a jack, and by saying that, I felt like most likely he just had an ace high or a weak four. But even with that in mind, I think I should just fold since it's very likely someone could be slow playing a jack. But in the moment, I was just focusing on the button. I felt like I had him beat, so I did call. Under the gun, one calls as well, so we go 3 ways to a turn. Turn is interesting as well. It's an ace, so we have a better 2 pair now. It checks to the button again, and he decides to check back. River is an 8. And I decided to bet here since I think the button never has a jack. I think he'll always be betting a turn. And sure, under the gun, one can have one, but if he raises, I could just pretty easily fold. But I just felt like I could get some value from worse hands that if I check, will check back. So I make it $20, but they both end up folding, so we take it down. Now we're under the gun with ace king off. I make it $15, and under the gun one, a very aggressive reg, 3 bets me to 50. Cutoff calls. It folds back to me, and yeah, I think definitely 4 betting here is good as well, but I just felt like early against early, he'll still be pretty tight, so I decide just to call. So we go 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes 8, 10, 6, so not too much going on for us. I check, under the one checks as well, and so does the cutoff. Turn comes a queen of spades, and things are a little difficult for me because usually pre-flop, I always check the suit in my hands while we're going to go to a flop, and I try my best not to look at it again. And now we're here. I did, but I forgot, so I don't remember if my ace or my king is a spade, and I don't want to look since usually that's a pretty clear tell that I don't have a flush myself, since if I do, I'd won't have to look since I would know. So without knowing, and definitely under the gun one can have ace queen, so he definitely could have hit that turn. I decided to check, and it checks it around once again. River is a 4, and now I don't think they have a 10 or a queen. I think they probably would have bet that on a flop or on a turn. So I think maybe they had a pocket pair, and I definitely could have queens. But at the end of the day, I felt like my ace king may be good. The fact that it's checked down, so I'm hoping that I could just the showdown and my hand is good. So I do check. It checks around. Under than one says that he doesn't have a pair, so I flip over my hand and he flips over the same thing. He has ace king as well, so we chop it up with under the gun one since the cutoff mucks. Let's keep the premiums going. Now we're in a small blind with pocket kings. Under than 2 limps, the low jack makes it 15, the hijack calls, the cutoff calls, who are 3 betting here, I make it $95, and only the hijack calls, and I think he could be pretty wide. He's been running pretty bad, and it seems like he's tilting and just going in calling station mode. So yeah, we go heads up against the hijack. The flop is not what you're hoping for when you have pocket kings. 3 ace 7, so yeah, there is the ace there. But as I said, I think the hijack is playing super wide, so I think you'd have a lot of hands that's not an ace. So I'm always going to usually put a c-bet out here since this board is good for us being a 3-bet pre-flop. So I make it $60 and he does call. Turn is a 10, and I decided to check since it's very likely he has an ace. And if he doesn't, we're probably not going to get 3 suits of value if he has some worse pocket pair. We are giving a free card for the flush draw, but yeah, I think barreling here when there's an ace on the board and a 3-bet pot's not the best. So I do check and get the good news when he checks back. River is a king, so once again we hit a set with our pocket kings. And now I'm going to bet big since there is a missed draw on the board and my line doesn't make too much sense. I feel like with the ace, I'd be barreling the turn. So I'm getting ready to bet, but before I'm even able to get the chips out, he pretty quickly folds, sadly. So we take it down. Now we're in under the gun one with ace 3 suited. I make it $15 and get the low jack and small blind to call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is very promising. 8, 9, 5. So we have a nut flush draw. 6, 7 is the nuts on this board since it's a straight. When it checks to me, I want to bet on the bigger side since this is a very wet board and they could definitely have a lot of 2 pairs, a lot of draws. So I don't want to bet small. I make it $20. That is small, but in the moment, I actually didn't realize that low jack calls. So I thought I was heads up. So definitely 3 ways. I would have made it bigger, but sadly, I did not realize it was 3 ways. So that's what I do. Low jack folds and a small blind call. So heads up to our turn. Turn is a 5 that pairs the board. That's definitely not a card I was looking for to continue this bluff. Any overcard would have been great. So when he checks to me, I decide to check. I don't want to bet here and get check raised. and I don't think I'm gonna get too many folds. I think whatever's calling the flop is gonna call the turn. So I check, hoping we could improve on the river. And once again, the river does help us. It's an ace, so now we have top pair. He checks, and once he checks, I feel like my ace is good, and definitely this will be a card I'll be bluffing on, so it's nice that we actually have it this time. I make it $60, and he ends up folding, so we take it down. So yeah, definitely a very nice start to the session. Now I'm gonna cut off with ace jack suited. I make it $15, and now the button 3-bets me to 50. Once again, the aggressive reg, and I kind of knew this was gonna happen. When I sit down right to his right, I was gonna be in a lot of spots that I'm gonna have to play 3-bet pots out of position. It is what it is. So I do call when it gets to me. Since cutoff vs button, I know he's very wide, so my ace jack suited is definitely doing good against his range. So yeah, I call. Let's see a flop. Flop comes 3, 8, 4. So we don't hit, but not the worst. We got 2 overcards, a backdoor flush draw, and a backdoor straight draw. So when I check and he c-bet for $50, I'm not going anywhere yet. I think you'd be c-betting almost his whole range here. So my ace jack may even be good, and we got a lot of good turn cards, so I do call. Turn's not one of those cards. It's a deuce. So sure, we have a gut shot, but when I check and he bets $140, I don't think we could call here with any diamond, a jack, or ace. Yeah, of course, but with a gut shot, I feel that's just not enough, so I do fold. After this hand, a player leaves on one of the seats that has a better view for us to film, so I rack up a move over there. That's actually pretty nice since it's now on the left of the aggressive reg, but yeah, that's just a coincidence. I don't switch seats just for convenience. I'll sit down wherever I'm at, and that's where I'll stay, for better or for worse. Just, of course, my priority right now is filming, and thankfully it's gonna be good for us since now it's gonna be easier to play, not having a super aggressive player right to our left. First hand in a new seat, we looked at a 4-2 off. Under 2, hijack, and then button limp. So of course we're just checking here. Let's see a flop. We get a big blind special 5-3-6. So we flop it straight. It takes to the hijack. He bets $15. Button folds and onto us. I decided to slow play and just call here since there's no flush draw on the board. And if I check raise here, I feel like this looks super strong. 2 pair sets, and I think it's gonna get through a lot. And as well, under the gun 2 has been super sticky, so I feel if I call, he's going to call as well. And that's what happens since I call, he calls, so we go 3 ways to a turn. I'm regretting that I slow played this hand. When the turn comes a 7, so pretty nasty since now any 4 has a straight, so it's going to be pretty hard to get value from worst hands. I check, and it ends up checking around. River is a deuce, bringing a backdoor flush in, and I don't want to check here since I feel like it get checked around a lot. I bet $30 that I definitely would have preferred to make it smaller since I'm almost never bluffing here, but that's what I do in the moment, and sadly, they both fold. So we take it down. Now we look down at a real hand, pocket queens in a hijack, under the gun and under the gun 2 limb, so I make it $25 and they both call, so 3 ways to a flop. Flop is amazing, 4 queen 10, so we flop the nuts, top set, 3rd time that we hit a set with our big pocket pairs, pretty amazing. It checks to us, I c-bet for $30 and only under the gun calls. Turn is the worst card of the deck, a king of spades, so basically almost every draw gets there, and since we're blocking top pair, that's most likely what he has. And it checks to me in a spot that most likely we are beat here a lot against all of the draws, and I don't see too many hands that are worse than ours that are going to call and definitely aren't going to get 3 streets of value from. So I decide to pot control here and check back. River is a 5, and I see the good news when he checks. If he would have bet here, especially big, I definitely wouldn't have been liking his spot, but I don't know if I could fold with a set. So now let's get some value, but I'm trying to get value from pretty weak hands, a queen, a 10, so I'm gonna go pretty small. I make it $55, but sadly he does end up folding and we take it down. I'm in a small blind with pocket 5s. Under the gun 2 makes it 15, and he gets the hijack and button to call, and I'm happy set mining here. I call, big blind calls as well. 5 ways to a flop, and once again we hit a set when it comes jack 8 5, checks the under the gun 2, that makes it 25. Hijack calls, and on sets a draw heavy board, I'm not calling, not slow playing this time. I'm making $100, and sadly once again everybody folds. So that's been the theme of this session. We've been hitting some very strong hands, but just not getting too much value from it. Just winning these smaller pots, not too many of big ones, but they add up. Thankfully been running pretty good, so can't complain. Let's move on to the next. Very next hand, we're in a button with queen 9 off. It folds to us, so make it $15 and just get the big blind to call, so heads up to a flop. Flop comes 8 9 ace, so second pair, pretty good. I think it's good enough to try to get some value from the big line. I make it $15 and he does call. Turn is a 10. That brings us some 2 pair and straights. When it checks to me, with 3rd pair, I think that's definitely too thin. I feel like if I bet here, it's more turning my hand into a bluff since I don't think anything worse is calling. So I'm happy to get the showdown. I check back. That changes when the river comes a jack. So we backdoor a straight with our queen. He checks, and now I'm going to bet big, trying to make this look bluffy. I make it $50. Sadly, he does end up folding and we take it down. Now we're up $394. Very nice session. Just hitting the board over and over again, not really having to bluff. Just betting for value. Definitely a session where poker is easier. Let's try to keep it going. Now the straddle's going on most of the times. We're playing 2, 5, 10. We're looking at pocket 7s and under than 1. I make it $30 and just get the hijack to call. So heads up to a flop. Surprisingly, we don't hit a set. It comes jack, ace, 8. The hijack has been calling super wide pre-flop. So I'm going to turn my pocket 7s into a bluff. I see bet for $30 and get the good news when he does fold and we take it down. Straddle still going on. We looked at an ace queen suited in the small blind. Under than 2 limps, it folds to us. I make it $50 and only the limper calls. So heads up to a flop. Flop comes king 7-4. So we don't hit, but that king of clubs is amazing to start bluffing and it's a pretty dry board. So I feel like it's going to get through a lot. I see bet for $40 and he does call. Turn is very nice at 10 of clubs. So we have a royal flush draw, definitely barreling on this card. I bet $140 and he does end up folding. That's very nice, but at the same time would have been cool trying to hit a royal flush for the vlog. Now I looked at it once again at pocket kings, third time in this session. There's straddle going on. Cutoff makes it 35. I 3-bet to 105 and he does call. So heads up to a flop. Flop is pretty great. 8, 10, 5. So unless he has a set, I think we're always good here. When he checks, I see bet for $75 and he does call. Turn is pretty great. Another 5. So less chances he has pocket 5s himself. And I don't think he should have any 5s calling a 3-bet pre-flop on calling the flop. Unless maybe he's super sticky with ace 5 suited. But for the most, I think he never has one. So when he checks, I'm going to keep it going. I bet $250 and he goes into the tank and I start getting worried since he starts counting out a raise and damn, this guy's been running super good. He has a huge stack. Does he really have a set? Does he have a 5? I really start getting worried until finally he starts saying that he doesn't believe me. So that sounds like he doesn't have much. And he flips over ace king off and folds. So yeah, I was pretty surprised. It seemed like he was going to turn that hand into a bluff. That would have put us in a pretty nasty spot since I don't see people bluffing too often in a spot like this. 3-bet pot, check raising a turn with ace high. So I'm glad he just folded truthfully since if he raised, that would have been a pretty hard spot and we take it down. Today's the session of the big pocket pairs. Since now in a big blind with pocket queens. There's no straddle going on. The cutoff limps, small blind call, so I make it $25 and just get the cutoff to call. So heads up to a flop. Flop comes 9, 4, 9. So I have an overpair. Sure, the opponent could have a 9 because he's been pretty wide, but at the same time, he could have a lot of draws as well. And we need protection since there's a lot of bad turn cards as well. There's the ace and the king. So I make it $25 and he does call. Turn is pretty great. It's another 9. So now we have a full house and it's way less likely he has a 9. And now I want to get some value. I think he could pretty sticky and still call with a 4 or a pocket pair. I don't know about flush draw. He shouldn't, but you never know. He is definitely a pretty sticky player, calling super wide, mostly with draws, suited hands. So I make it $80 and he does call. River is great. It's a deuce. So if he has a 4, he still may be calling here. And with all the pocket pairs, I want to get value from them. Sure, he could have a 9, but I felt like more likely he just has a worse full house. I make it $200 and see the pretty bad news when he min raises us to 400. So yeah, this is pretty nasty, and looking back on it, I do think I should just fold. I don't see this player ever bluffing, and he's very player dependent too. I think plenty of players shouldn't have too many 9s, but this player previously, I saw him limp under the gun with 9-5 suited. So he could have almost every single 9 that's suited in the deck. So yeah, I think I should have been strict and do find a fold, but I was just thinking about the price I was getting. That was so damn good, and I do flick in the call. And of course, he shows the bad news with 9-7 suited. I just think that min raise is almost always a 9. I just don't see many bluffs. So yeah, I like my bet on the river, but definitely I think I could have lost a lot less than I did in this spot, and this brings us breaking even. That's definitely not fun. We've been grinding this whole session, building the stack little by little, and pretty close to the end we lose it all, but we still have some time. Let's focus and keep it going. Now in a big blind with 4-7 off, under the 2, low jack, hijack, limps, it falls to us, and of course we're just checking. Let's see if we could get a big blind special again, and we do. Flop comes deuce 4-4, so we flop trips, not the best kicker. It checks the under the 2, he bets $10 and the hijack calls, and onto us. I think just calling here, if I raise, they definitely could have better fours. The way this has been playing, limping, they could be pretty wide. So yeah, I don't just want to be called by better, I call. Turn is a 9. Now it checks at the hijack and he bets $20. This is the same player as before that had the 9 against our pocket queens. And yeah, just calling here, and I'm starting to get worried that our at 4 is actually not good. So yeah, I just call. So we go heads up to river. River is a king. I check and I bet $40, and yeah, this just feels like a 4, and I was feeling, am I really gonna lose again against this guy now with trips? But that price, I just don't think I could fold. I do call, and he flips over 4, but with a 5, we have a bitter kicker, but it doesn't play, and we chop it up. This brings us to the last hand of the session. We are pocket 7s and under the gun. I make it $15. Under the gun 1 calls. Now under the gun 2 3-bets is 60, and it definitely looks super strong. I haven't seen him 3-bet before, so the fact that it's early position against early position does seem super strong. Things are interesting since now the hijack cold calls, so on to us, and yeah, as I said, he seems strong, but now when there's another caller, I think I'm getting a decent price to set mine, so I do call. Under the 1 full, so 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes 5 3 ace, so definitely not what I was hoping for. But when I check, it checks around. Turn is a queen, and now I take for a good amount of time here since I feel like my pocket pair is almost never good here. The fact that he 3-bet and then checks on an ace high flop, I just felt like most likely he had a pocket pair, pocket kings, pocket queens, maybe pocket jacks, and the other player as well. Cold calls usually are pocket pairs as well, so just felt like they were scared of an ace, and I could have a lot of aces myself, so I was considering bluffing, but I didn't go through with it. One of the reasons is the turn was a queen, and I definitely think that under the gun 2 could have pocket queens, so I do check, and once again it checks around. River is a 5, and I'm disappointed that I didn't pull the trigger on the turn, since I felt like if I would have bet the turn and barreled the river, it definitely would have worked. But now that I'm here, I just wasn't sure if I was going to get most likely what he has is pocket kings to fold. So yeah, I do check, and once again it checks around. Under the gun 2 did have pocket kings, hijack had pocket 8s, so definitely disappointed in myself. I don't want to be results oriented, but I do think that would have been a very good spot to turn my hand into a bluff, since it just seemed under the gun had turned his hand over when he checked that flop, since he looked super strong pre-flop, and checking on an ace high board just screams pocket kings, pocket queens, and the turn was a queen, but since it is a queen, it's more likely he has kings. So yeah, would have been a pretty cool bluff spot, but we didn't go through with it, and that ends our session. Not the way we were hoping, but it is what it is. That's how it happens sometimes. Let's rack up, cash out, and see how we did. That's the end of the session. Not the best. Definitely a bummer when you're up and you just lose it all towards the end. It is one of those sessions, just grinding, winning little pots, and little by little just building it up. I think we're up like a 600 at a point, and that one hand just took us breaking even, and then we just couldn't win nothing after that. So in for 1,000, out for 855, so down $145. And yeah, it just is what it is. That's part of the game. Definitely gets a little frustrating when, you know, you're up and then you lose it all, especially when it's all towards the end, but that's part of poker. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be back at it next week, and if you could like, comment, always happy to talk about these hands, and I'll see you guys next week.